Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live launch day webinar interview with the one and only Stacey Webb. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you.
It's launch day.
Yay, launch day.
Oh, I love this day. All the hard work is leading up to this day. It's kind of like, the birth of a baby or the wedding day. It's that day when it all just comes together and it's launched into the world. So
Yeah.
let's get straight into it, Stacey. So your
Yeah.
book is The Intuitive Detective. Can you share with me what inspired you to write The Intuitive Detective?
Um, Initially, what inspired me to write it was going on my own healing journey, and my intuition had been sort of saying for quite a while in terms of writing a book, and I'd always avoided it, deflected it,
Mhm.
and it came about of a different way where I ended up about a couple of years ago writing down different stories of my life and writing down different stories, not just any specific any big stories, but it was more specific stories of things that help evolved my own healing journey. And as that came about, I realized a lot of that had to do with my intuition as well. A lot of that ended up when I listened to it. Helped me go on those deeper layers of my own healing journey, and so it ended up just going around that way as well. So
Can you share with us a little bit about your backstory? Because, the intuitive detective, my brain's going, what? Tell me more. Why the intuitive detective? So
yeah,
I think everyone needs a bit of insight into who Stacey Webb is and where you're
yeah.
coming from.
Yeah, so well, first off, I now also consider myself as an imperfectly perfect person, and that's me
Aren't we
and
all?
foremost before anything else. But I've also been a police officer for coming up 16 years now, and have been a detective for coming up 14 years of those. So that has really shaped a lot of my life in terms of being in the police force. So the intuitive detective encompasses my early childhood as well as my career as a police officer, and also current life experiences that's been outside of the police force, all sort of rolled in together. Because obviously, being in the police force for such a long time, that's going to play a big major role in my own healing journey by, you know, just merely being with people whilst working who are going to be suffering from trauma, as well as my own trauma that I would have suffered whilst also being a police officer. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of that,
absolutely.
yeah, and also can help you sort of start to, I guess, be the detective in your own healing journey, and sort of take a look as to the awareness of when has intuition played or tried to get your attention in your own life, and how has it helped you on your own healing journey.
Oh, you're sparking all different things inside of me, I swear. I just love it. I love it. And I love this book. I really have to say it's fascinating, it's intriguing. It's just one of those books and you can just pick it up in any story and just, that's what I love about this as well. It's just nice to the point. You just get to it. We feel it. We take on board the messages and we put our own perspective on it and make it our own. I just love it. So can I ask you, can you share different types of intuition for us? So just so we have a bit of
Yes,
insight
definitely.
into.
So there are different ways that we can receive intuition, and we call them clairs. So you'll have like a dominant clair, and then the rest will fall very soon after, and can be simultaneous with those other clairs. So the one that's, I guess, most prominently known is clairvoyance. So clair meaning clear, and voyance means seeing. So clear
Mhm.
seeing, clear sight. You also have clairaudience, so clear hearing. You also then have claircognizance, so that clear knowing, that knowing within you, and clairsentience, that clear feeling. And so sometimes people disregard the clear feeling and clear knowing, not think that their intuition as well. And so when you're able to have that awareness as to which is your dominant clair, um, you can then sort of be more aware to listen to it. When we listen to it, we can follow the guidance of what our intuition is telling us.
Oh my God, I love giving our intuition a name.
Yeah.
Claire is just fabulous.
I think
Fabulous.
sometimes people don't give it enough recognition that it deserves,
Mm,
and there'll be times when people can look in their life and have that clear gut feeling that and that's just one that one type of intuition that we can receive is that
mm,
survival intuition, that gut knowing intuition. There could be other times that just that when you walk into a room and that feeling that you might have, that's also your intuition talking to you as well, by that sensitivity intuition of feeling the energy that's around you. So it's quite interesting.
and allowing that in, it is fascinating and it is important, and we all have it, whether we like to admit it or not.
Exactly. It is not a special gift. We all have it innate in us, and it's just a matter of whether you listen to it and follow the guidance of it. Um, and sometimes you may even look back and go, "Oh, I wish I did this. That did come through to me," and we kind of disregard it, thinking that it's not a loud message. But intuition itself, it's a very subtle message. It doesn't need to be extremely loud. It might end up coming louder if you're not listening to it.
Yeah.
But when it first comes through, it's very subtle. It's very soft. It's not there to scare you. It's there to guide you. And I think that's where a lot of people scan over it and don't take notice of it.
Mm. And it works 100% for our greater good, doesn't it?
It
It's all there
does.
for us.
It does. It's always guiding you towards your higher true purpose, your authentic self. And
Mhm.
when it comes to the intuition, you don't always need to know the answer behind what the intuitive guidance is. That's also, I guess, where our logical mind and our ego comes in, because we
Yeah.
want to know where is it guiding us. And you might look back and go, I just had to do this, or I just needed to go this way, and have no other reason why by that feeling within you on however you receive your intuition to do it, and it just happens.
Yeah, that's a scary bit, isn't it, though, Stacey? You have to have faith in it then, and
Yeah,
we like to know how things are working, but you will always know looking back. You always know the why when it is revealed.
that's
We're going
right.
to have some fun here, Stacey.
Okay.
Your wonderful book is in 4 parts. So I'm going to delve into your book here behind the scenes, and I'm going to choose a story from each part, and you're going to give us a little bit of an insight into the story. She doesn't know what I'm going to pull out, but she knows her book back to front, so she'll be able to share. Okay, so we're going to go to part one. Okay, so part one is called "Following the Breadcrumbs." Okay, so before I pick the story, can you share with us why you called it "Following the Breadcrumbs"?
I called it following the breadcrumbs because it was a part of when I feel like I was listening to my intuition, and also was very scared of it. It was a very big part of my life where I avoided and wanted to block my intuition, and didn't want to face any of the fears that came up from it. And when I eventually came back to following the guidance of my intuition, it was then just allowing me to continue forward. And listening to your intuition and following it is merely following the breadcrumbs. We said
Yeah.
earlier that you don't really know sometimes where it's leading you to until you get there and you look back and you can see the why. And so this part of the initial part of my life was me merely following the breadcrumbs, me breaking away from being a big people pleaser and rescuer and extreme caregiver, to also take care of myself and make myself a priority. And so that's part of following the breadcrumbs there.
Listen to that message, guys. We're not here to serve everyone else. We also have to serve ourselves. And that self
That's
care
it.
is so
You,
important,
you
And
cannot
if you
pour from an
don't,
empty cup.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so for part one, I'm going to choose "Fear of Spiders Falling on My Head."
Yes. Did you want me to read that out or want me to talk about that
Would
one?
you talk about it, please? Give us an
Oh, okay.
insight into the story and the intuition in it.
So this part is when I'm very like about 8 years old. My mum was pregnant with her fourth child, and I'm the eldest. And this is talking about the time when my mum was nearly due to give birth, and we're all you know what it's like when someone's ready to give birth,
Yeah.
especially someone in your family. You're all waiting for the moment, and it's all very exciting. Like, we didn't know the gender of the baby, of my sibling that was coming, so it was all exciting. Is going to be a little brother, is going to be a little sister, and all of that type of stuff. So my dad was working night shift, and it was just my mum, me, and my brother and sister at home, and it was in the evening. I've got no idea where my other two siblings were, but I heard my mum go from the bathroom into the bedroom, and I then instantly knew something was wrong. And so she
Yeah.
screamed out to me to go and get some help from Auntie Margaret, who just lives a few streets up. And I knew that it was something wrong before
Yeah.
my mum even spoke to me, and which was very different because obviously we were waiting this arrival and we were all very excited. And so I ran, it was at night time, and I ran up to my Auntie Margaret's, and I was scared of the dark. And I was scared of running underneath trees because I was scared of spiders falling down of me. I had a big fear of it. When we used to go for walking, if it was in the evening with my dad, I would walk around the trees so I didn't have to walk under them. But on this occasion, that was all thrown out the window, and I merely just ran. You couldn't see in the dark, there's no street lights, and I ran up to my Auntie Margaret's house to go and get help, in which she did, and my mum was taken to hospital, and we had all of that. But so that's the the fear of spiders, is me just knowing that something was wrong, putting all of that aside, my fear aside of the spiders, knowing that I had to instantly go and get help. And it was facing that fear, knowing that it was out of love for someone else, that I went and did that and got the help that my mum needed at that time.
We all have that human instinct, don't you? You know when something is wrong, and just to really, be aware of that and to act on it, and that's what you done instinctively, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And by the time, as it was only a couple of doors up, but by the time we had gotten back, my mum was unconscious. So getting that help, and knowing that I had an adult there to help my mum was bleeding internally. And basically, her life and
Save our
the
life.
life of my sibling was on the line there, and
Yeah,
making sure that
amazing,
my mum got the help straight away.
amazing, amazing insight. It just goes to show, doesn't it? All right, part two, leading towards my purpose. Tell us about that.
Um, so this is pretty much that. The first part is when I spoke about breaking away from the people pleasing, and actually going towards my desire, my authentic truth, and breaking away from what people perceived or wanted me to believe or wanted me to be.
Yes.
And so growing up, I always wanted to be a police officer, and it was never really fully accepted amongst my family. My mum was worried I was going to get hurt, injured, or possibly even killed. So when it came to me finishing high school, I was too young to join the police force, so I did a science degree, and I hated it. And in part one was me breaking away from that. So part two, leading towards my purpose, was me actually being within the police force. It focuses on some jobs that I attended as a police officer where the decision I made on that day, or merely just me turning on a street and something happening on that street that I was first there for to save a life. It was really showing how me following my purpose on my dream, what I believed was my desire, and my path in life, was then actually creating ripples in the field, and essentially without sounding so egotistically, is changing people's lives. You're there, at the brink of someone's life. You're there when someone's been involved in something traumatic, or you're also there when you're having to give the death message to someone, and know that you can't fix that, but merely just being there and creating and holding that space for them is what they need at that time, and nothing else about that is what you don't need to do anything else to fix, so to speak. It's merely just to be there. And so that was a really beautiful part of my healing journey, to from being this I guess the parent after my dad passed away, and this caregiver and rescuer role, and going into a profession that is kind of also being that rescuer type of role, but taking it in a different context, and knowing that it's actually also the creator and
Yeah.
holder of space when people are in their own trauma as well.
Wow, it is very powerful. And one of the stories in part two is called Death Message. You know, it's a fascinating story. But the one I've chosen from part two is for you to give insight into is Shots Fired.
So yes, so shots fired. It was a job when I was in uniform. I was still in general duties at that time, and it was a job had come over for shots had been fired at a residential house. So myself, another car crew, and our sergeant, we all turned up. Went around the corner for us to put our ballistics vest on. Obviously, in
Hmm.
terms of for firearms, we need to make sure our safety. And there was only just the three cars. There was only just pretty much the five of us. And as we've approached this house, we can see that there's like a whole shed had been blown up. You can hear people crying out in pain inside, and when we approached inside it wasn't any shots fired at all. It was actually someone had was mixing stuff in their garage and basically in terms of
Exploded.
created a bomb and exploded in their face, and as a result of that lost quite a substantial number of fingers as well. And it was just all in this rubble where this garage is. And so we've got people helping the injured man. We've got, you know, ambulance turning up, and the next thing is we need to try and find these fingers, because if we can find them in time and ice them in time, that he has the potential to have them reattached, and whether anything else can happen. But it came to, okay, we've got like a whole shed is just demolished down, and we had no idea where any of it was. And I ended up just walking to one specific spot. I had no idea why I was doing it. Just walked to one specific spot, lifted up, and I found a finger. And the next thing I know, I'm finding quite a number of fingers where I'm then taking them back
Oh
to
my,
get them on ice, taking them to the hospital, coming back to find a couple
wow.
more, and taking them back so he can have his fingers reattached. And but the time that I've taken the first lot of fingers that I'd found to the hospital, I had the rest of them trying to find the rest of the fingers, and they couldn't find it. And I've come back, and they had no idea how I even found the first lot of fingers. And I'm sitting there, and I've gone to a completely different spot to where I first found the first lot, and I find more. And it was just me sort of sitting there, well, not sitting there, I guess standing there, because we were, and just sort of being called to a specific spot, and I had no idea why, but I figured, well, we've just got to trust it. What the worst that can happen is I don't find anything. So it was just merely on just me following my own intuition, my own guidance. It was just telling me, just look here, and I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll have a look.
And that even you at home, doesn't it, as well? But like, wow, what an impact that happened on that person's life to actually have fingers because you know, were intuitive enough and allowed yourself to be guided, even though it was totally irrational, probably, but you allowed it just to, you know, what have I got to lose? Let's just go, you know,
That's
nobody's
right.
going,
The rest of them were like, why even bother looking for them? We're never going to find them. You could be there for hours. And
yeah.
within the first lot of few minutes, I had found pretty much half of them. So I think they were just like, okay, you keep going, and, and we'll keep looking
We
when you're
don't
off to the
understand it,
hospital.
but just keep going with it. It's working.
Whatever you're doing is working. It was kind of like that.
That's what intuition's though, isn't it? You know, you don't understand it, but it works, so you go with it. You know, why? You know,
Exactly right. And it's just in the book, I just sort of wanted to show how it's not so much of intuition to help you with something that's sort of very long into the future. It could be merely just something that's very quick, where it it can also have you into this survival mode, going into this fight, flight, freeze or fawn of about what's happening around you, and knowing that you can at some still kind of regulate yourself to some point to attune in and still be able to find something that's for right there and right now. Yeah.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Part three: seeds are planted.
Yes. Well, I guess that topic alone, if hearing from so far, it's
Mhm.
really putting down the seeds of the intuition and going deeper. It was helping me going through the surface layer of my intuition and going deeper, which and also enabled me to go through the layers of my own healing journey. You know, all of us, we're all on a healing journey of some point, and if you're actively wanting to be on it, it's going to be a roller coaster at times. It's going to be up and down, and it's going to be very cyclical in spiral in nature. And so this was sort of enabling me to know that I can go deeper, uncovering different layers of my own trauma healing that had a bit more of an awareness to myself and to others, and really also enabled me to have bring forward a lot more of self-compassion and self-love to myself. I
Yeah.
think we kind of can forget to do that at times, and it's easier to do that for everyone else and to leave yourself last. But this really allowed the seeds to be planted that I also needed to be a priority in my own life. Again,
Hmm.
you can't pour from an empty cup, so it really was a way to allow that to come through.
A lot happened in part three. You became a mom and things like that. But the story I chose was the last one, hearing her scream when no one screamed.
Yes, so I have four children, and my youngest are twins, and this was at my twins' first birthday party. And we had family friends. We just had a backyard party, and we were preparing for the pinata. So I went inside to go and get some paper bags. So when all the kids get all the lollies out, they can just grab all the bags, and they've got their little candies there. And as I was in there, I was talking to someone inside, and I immediately just stopped everything. In my mind, I heard a scream. In my mind, and in my body, when I heard and felt it, it was so real that it was a child scream, and it was a child screaming in pain. And so I dropped everything and ran outside and was like, who screamed? And everyone's normal in the backyard. Like, everyone's just kind of looked at me like I'm a weirdo. It's going, what are you talking about? No one screamed. I'm like, no, someone screamed. Someone's in trouble. And I ran out towards the back of our house where we back onto bushland, but we also had like trampolines and swing sets and everything out there. And so I ran down there, which was a little bit of a distance. And as I get closer to there, kids are coming up, and one of my daughters comes up to say, Willow's hurt herself on the trampoline. And I get to the trampoline, and she has broken her leg,
Mm.
and it was a very clean break. And so I get on there and help with the splint and help her with there, and through that, pretty much everyone has said, and even herself was like, she didn't scream, that she didn't physically scream, but it was me, I guess,
Picking up on it.
hearing that and just following the guidance to go, someone's in trouble. And I immediately went out before no one even realized that something was wrong, to go out and help her there. And so we're there for obviously quite a bit of time until ambulance came in. That's the one thing when you're at a birthday party where obviously there's a bunch of police officers and that, there's always going to be people to help. And so there are a lot of people doing different duties. We had people, other police and that sort of doing games with the kids. They didn't
Yeah.
realise, I guess, to the extent of how Willow had hurt herself. So to not to alert them into getting extremely worried. So yeah, it was really about just this for me at that time, that inner like big feeling that just happened with me, as well as hearing the scream, for me to just drop everything and actually leave. It was just, I guess it was more in terms of this big energetic, because she didn't
Hmm.
actually physically scream herself, for me to know that someone needed help, and I needed to be there. So
Part four leads this leads beautifully into part four, because there has to come an acceptance with that, because people are looking at you going, what is up with her? But there's nothing up with her. You just in tune with it, and your guy, and you allow it to come through. And a lot of people are
yeah,
closed to it. I understand, because I get these messages all the time myself, and it's because I'm aware, and I love to be aware. But
yeah,
this is part four, is waking up to your power. So chat about
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah. So we've got the following the breadcrumbs, and going towards my purpose, and then the seeds are planted, and now it's like, oh, okay, following my intuition, I'm going through the deeper layers. I'm becoming more aware of myself. I'm becoming more aware of my own power within myself, and breaking away and releasing a lot of limiting beliefs that I had, and really stepping forward into my power more towards my authentic truth and everything who I am and will continue to be. And so it really sort of brought forward and ties in, I guess, the different ways that I bring in different practices within myself, how I continue to attune to the frequency of my intuition, how I do things to regulate my nervous system. We're in a state of age where, a lot of things are happening, especially in the police force. You're constantly going from job to job. And surrounded by people who are in their own trauma state, whether they're in fear of the past or in fear of the future. And so it really was a way of, I realized that you really do need to take care of yourself to really step up into your true power, to be of service to everyone else as well. And so it brings in a lot of those practices that I do in terms of breath work, somatic embodiment, EFT tapping, attuning that more into my intuition, and bringing I guess showing how some people might think it could be different or perceived as different, and how you can really make it yourself, and how you can make it your own creative way, your own unique way, and that it doesn't need to be structured as such. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And I'm going to bring this a little deviating a little bit of a way, because I think that that's a very important conversation to have. The fear around trauma, the fear around, like, I endured PTSD myself in my lifetime, but I didn't fear it. So I worked through it. I call it my cocoon period. And it hasn't defined my life. If anything, it enhanced my life, because I ended up living life at a higher vibration because of the choices I made because of it. But a lot of people can fear it. But whenever you're talking about things that you can do, breath work, things that you can do, there's lots that you can do that you are in control of if you release the fear and focus on what you can do. And you will take steps towards recovery, won't you?
That's right. It's when you are in that darkness, or feel that you're stuck in this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and you just feel like you can't get out. You feel isolated. You feel alone, and you feel that no one will understand you or can help you or can even have a bit of an understanding as to what it is that you're going through. Um, and this just allows those different ways that you can incorporate yourself, or obviously in terms of going out and seeking the support and guidance through others. And one of them was, if I put in there, was even the scaffolding, that realized I couldn't do everything myself. It was a big thing. You're a police officer, you're a mother, and you're thinking that you can do all these things, but there are just some times where you have to sit there and go, I need to go to my support network. And realizing you don't really have one there is terrifying. And so it's like, okay, I need to build that up. And I need to know that I can lean on them if I need it. And I need to know that I don't have to do it myself. I don't have to do everything myself. And that at the end of the day, I'm also not alone. That everyone is going through their own stuff as well. That there will be someone that can resonate with me. There will be someone that can help me. There will be someone that can merely just be there for me. It's not always about needing to be fixed. We're not broken, but it's also just sometimes we need that. As a police officer, as I said, you're the creator and holder of space for people, and sometimes you just need that back to yourself as well. And just allowing that to happen, giving permission for that to happen, is such a big thing, and it's a big step for people.
Is absolutely. And scaffolding was the chapter I had, the one that I had chosen for this. So look, you're even intuitive in knowing what I was going to choose.
I
Oh, I
think
love it. I love it.
it's so important, and whether that scaffolding is just, okay, doing breath work yourself, but
Mm.
it's allowing those different practices. I mean, there's so many different practices. You can choose a multitude that resonate with you, and that will challenge you in the way that to help you towards your growth, where you still feel held in that energetic container of it. And I choose breath work all the time because it's something that we can all do. It's something that we can all do to help regulate our own nervous system, and it's something that is extremely underrated at times on
Yes.
how powerful it can actually be. And that's
You
why
have
I
me
use that.
breathing deep here, Stacey. I'm breathing deep, right deep down. Isn't it that? And I always say to people, we need to lean inwards for the answers, but outwards for the support to make it happen. And that's what it is.
Yeah,
And to know who those people and what we need at that time,
yeah,
it's amazing.
it is definitely.
Oh, I'm so enjoying this conversation. I really am. Can you share with us, just briefly, for those who haven't written a book or, who are being called to write a book, because we all have a book in us, let's be honest, but it's whether we choose to answer the call. What can you share your writing process?
So mine's ended up being, I think I spoke earlier on, was about I was writing different stories in my life. And that was merely because I was avoiding my intuition of saying to write a book. And so I realized halfway through as I was writing these different stories that were in terms of helping my own healing journey or outlining different parts of my own healing journey, that it was actually a book. They were not all in order, the stories that I wrote, but I did write the stories, and then as I had all of the stories laid out, it sort of came to me to have four parts of the book. Um, and it came very quickly as to what those four parts would be. I think once I was very open and tuned to listen to the intuition, to realizing, okay, what I was writing was actually a book, it flowed very flowed very easily for me afterwards. So once I was writing the stories, I realized it needed to go into four parts, and so the stories that I wrote, it was like, okay, scaffolding, okay, that needs to go in part four. And so I just kind of did that, and then when it came to looking at all of them, it was just putting them in order and, taking out ones that didn't need to be there, or putting in
Yeah.
ones that did need to be in there. So, yeah.
I love that you honored the process. Guys, you can learn so much from that because you need to honor the process. Don't overthink it, just allow it to flow. And it's not that it's easy, you still have to do the work to write them and
Oh,
things like
definitely.
that. But it's just so much more in flow, and the words and what needs to come out flows through. And it is that it's still hard work, but you get it down. And whenever you've got your end product, you know that you've been on a journey to bring it there, don't you, Stacey?
Oh, definitely. There were some of those stories even as I was typing them, there were tears in my eyes for a number of those stories. And it was very cathartic to write that out. And for one of them in particular, I hesitated to even put it in, but it just kept coming to me, no, it needs to go in there. Um, and I realized the reason why it wasn't is because it was my own ego that was not wanting it to be there. So once I just surrendered to that and allowed it to happen, it very flowed quite easily in terms of having that all out and just trusting yourself, just going, well, you're just writing, just write, just allow it all to come out, allow it to just flow out of you. And once I allowed that, it
Yeah.
did very naturally, and it felt it was definitely that was what needed to happen. So yeah.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. I have to admit, this is I love this interview. I love this book. Honestly, it's just insightful. It's intriguing. It's a fascinating book. And so I can't wait to hear all the feedback and the reviews coming back from people reading it. So, you know, well, let me share that Stacey is actually on Ticker News tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow evening. So be sure to watch out for that. No pressure, Stacey. But this book, whenever you came to me, and I was just like, wow, it just caught my attention straight away. The Intuitive Detective. What does that even mean? What's the content of this book? But it's that and more. So you're not going to be disappointed. So get your copy. Honestly, get your copy, and join everyone in celebrating this book, and you will learn from Stacey's process and how she shared. You're going to learn so much about how you share your story through story. We get to know you, we get to go on the journey with you. But it's just so insightful and entertaining. So I commend you for honoring the process of your book, Stacey.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot.
Beautiful. Guys, you can go and find Stacey at what's your website, Stacey?
My website's www.staceywebb.com.au.
There we go. And you can go to www.kmdbooks.com or .com/, the intuitive detective, for all links all across the world, and also for Stacey's amazing link tree link. And you should follow Stacey on Instagram. You have the best Instagram feed. You're so entertaining. I love it. So definitely go and check her out there, and yeah, go and grab your book. But also you'll find all links to all different things on there. So we'll keep that page updated with all of the podcasts and all of the book tour that Stacey's doing, because she's a busy bee.
Busy bee, but I love it. It's so beautiful.
It's so good. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to everyone who's in the comments. And please go and check out the comments. Stacey, Danielle Lyons there, yay! Danielle's the editor of the Intuitive Detective. Thank you so much, Danielle, for
Thank
jumping
you.
in and saying hi. I want to bring her little message on so that she can be on
Thank you
screen
so
with
much,
us.
Danielle. Oh, thank you so much.
Isn't she amazing? Danielle's
Absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us, and be sure to share the Intuitive Detective if you've enjoyed it with everyone, because it's word of mouth that helps these books get out into the world. Thank you so much for joining me, Stacey. I loved our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.